War. War never changes. But the games that explore its aftermath, well, those have changed quite a bit over the years. From the humble beginnings of a cult classic RPG to a post-apocalyptic pop culture phenomenon, the Fallout franchise has taken us on one radically retro-futuristic ride through the irradiated landscapes of an alternate reality, where the American dream went nuclear. So, grab your Pip-Boy, stock up on Nuka-Cola, and get ready to venture into the wasteland. Back when I was about 18, I stumbled upon this series, and let me tell you, it hooked me like nothing else before. I was hungry to absorb everything about it, and as time went on, my affection for the series only deepened. But lately, I've started feeling a bit let down by how the series has evolved over the past couple of years. So I figured it's time to take a closer look at each game in the series, pinpoint where this disappointment started creeping in, and maybe, just maybe, rediscover that old love for the wasteland. What began as a spiritual successor to Interplay's Wasteland title quickly blossomed into a rich, immersive universe, set a century after total nuclear annihilation. You step into the shoes of a vault dweller, someone whose ancestors wisely chose to ride out the apocalypse underground. Thanks to that decision, you've lived a pretty sheltered life, free from the horrors of radiation, until now. See, there's a glitch in your vault's water chip, and guess who's the lucky one tasked with finding a replacement? Yep, it's you. What's this?
Well, you left out some information, so I'm helping.
Right, okay, fair enough, but can I please get on with the video?
Yes.
Thank you. After a quick briefing, you're thrust into the world outside, starting off in a humble cave. From there, it's all on you to piece together clues and pull out all the stops to rescue Vault 13. Oh, and did I mention there's a ticking clock driving you forward for the first leg of the game?
That sounds like a lot of pressure.
It sure was. It's no joke. You've got a tight leash with only 150 in-game days to track down that elusive water chip. Let it hit zero, and it's curtains for you. But if you can pull off this mission impossible, brace yourself for an even bigger bombshell, the discovery of a looming threat to your vault and all of humanity. Enter the Super Mutants on a mission to conquer the wasteland one soul at a time. Despite its relatively short timeline, the game keeps you glued to your screen from start to finish. While you can wrap it up in a blink, Fallout's replay value is through the roof. With a boatload of content and interactions, you could easily sink countless hours into this bad boy. The masterminds behind the game's development were none other than Brian Fargo and Tim Cain, names that still carry weight in gaming circles today. Originally, they toyed with the idea of using an existing stat system called GURPS. Ruby, get with it!
Sorry, Jack. Yes, okay, where were we? GURPS stands for Generic Universal Role-Playing System.
Thank you. I'm sorry about her, guys. In the end, they decided to forge their own path with Special, a system that's been a cornerstone of every major Fallout title from the get-go. Think of it as a blank canvas, giving players the freedom to customise their experience and explore endless possibilities with different characters. Sure, the game made some money, but it didn't quite hit the mark sales-wise. Still, that didn't put the brakes on plans for a sequel. Even before the release of the first game, Fallout 2 was already in the works. Fast forward 60 years and players find themselves stepping into the shoes of a descendant of the original Vault dweller. This time around, the game delves deeper into tribal themes, distancing itself as much as possible from pre-apocalyptic America. That is, until the formidable Enclave enters the scene. These guys are like a blast from the past, serving as a stark reminder of the mistakes that led to the post-apocalyptic chaos. And guess what? They're hell-bent on reclaiming America from those who have been actually trying to rebuild it.
Ooh, I love a good showdown.
But hold your horses, because the Enclave aren't the only players in this power game. Enter the new California Republic, making its debut appearance in the series, aiming to bring some semblance of order to the wasteland. Caught in the middle of this struggle for dominance, you find yourself on a mission to rejuvenate the world using a nifty little device called the Garden of Eden Creation Kit. It promises to breathe life back into the barren land and restore the world to its former glory. As the story unfolds, it becomes crystal clear just how corrupt and entitled the Enclave really are, clinging to their delusions of grandeur and entitlement to a country they helped obliterate. It's almost a parody in itself. Regardless of your personal allegiances, I would say the game's theme boils down to out with the old, in with the new. The old world had its shot, and look where it's landed us. It's high time for the survivors to step up and start laying the foundation for a new society. And if there's anything that screams parody in this game, it's got to be the president of the Enclave, Dick Richardson.
I've no idea who you're talking about.
Aye, sure you don't, Ruby. But let's address the elephant in the room. Fallout 2 feels like a tougher nut to crack, especially in today's gaming landscape. Unlike its predecessor, which could feel like a cakewalk at times, this game is downright brutal and unforgiving. It throws you into the deep end right from the start, bombarding you with ridiculously tough random encounters that make sure you don't get too cocky too soon. As a result, I found myself struggling to sink my teeth into Fallout 2 as much as I did with the first instalment, even though the story adds a whole new layer to the Fallout universe. But here's the thing. Despite my reservations, it actually outsold its predecessor and received rave reviews across the board. And, I gotta admit, it totally deserved them. This time around, it was Tim Kaine and Chris Avallone steering the ship, and boy, did they deliver. Black Isle Studios was the powerhouse behind the project, and they blew all expectations out of the water, especially considering they had a mere 9 months to churn out the game. Fallout 2 not only kept Interplay afloat a little while longer, but also solidified its status as a force to be reckoned with in the gaming world. After the triumph of Fallout 2, Interplay was itching to shake things up a wee bit with the series, so they teamed up with game studio Micro 40 to take Fallout in a whole new direction. This time, they decided to explore a tactical RPG angle, setting the game apart from the mainline titles in the series. Enter Brotherhood of Steel, a game that puts a spotlight on the faction that played a significant role in the first 2 games. The intro sets the stage, delving into how they rose to power and showcasing their expertise. But here's where things take a wild turn. Infighting within the Brotherhood causes a group to split off and venture eastward on airships fashioned from scrap. Think Zeppelins in a post-apocalyptic world. However, their journey hits a snag when they're zapped by lightning and find themselves stranded in none other than Chicago, Illinois.
Talk about a shock to the system, right? Because of the lightning and stuff.
This group didn't have the same recruitment limitations as those out west. They welcomed anyone willing to join their ranks, and guess what? You are one of those eager recruits. The game's storyline centres around a menacing machine threat emerging from Vault Zero, home to a supercomputer that gained self-awareness. As for the gameplay, it follows the tried and true formula of other tactical RPGs. You command a squad during missions rather than freely roaming in an open world. It does the job it's meant to do, and it still hangs onto the special and stat systems from the previous games. Plus, there's a multiplayer mode that lets players take the reins of other races for the first time ever. Think ghouls, super mutants, robots, and even the fearsome Deathclaw. While it had a lot of unique things to add to the series, the game has been labelled as half-canon by current owners Bethesda, with only some concepts being referenced in later games. The game sold fairly well, although it didn't reach the heights of its predecessor in terms of reception. You'd think a direct sequel to Fallout 2 would be a no-brainer, right? Well, think again. In 2003, Black Isle Studios began production of Van Buren, or other words, Fallout 3.
Hold the bus. How come I've never heard of this?
Well, Ruby, if you'd let me finish.
Sorry.
Surprisingly, attempts to greenlight the game were repeatedly shot down by higher-ups, only gaining traction when other projects fell through. But here's where the plot thickens. As development kicked off, Interplay found itself in choppy financial waters once more. To make matters worse, many key designers from the previous games decided to jump ship, unwilling to stick around a sinking company. Despite the hurdles, development pushed forward, reaching a stage where a playable demo was up and running. But fate had other plans. the project got axed when Interplay went bankrupt, leading to the closure of Black Isle Studios. Instead, the company shifted its focus to console game development, leaving Fallout fans high and dry. While we'll never see what this game could have been, a lot of concepts live on in Obsidian's Fallout New Vegas. As Obsidian was founded by former Black Isle Studios employees, it gave them another chance at their vision. Returning concepts include the feud between the Brotherhood of Steel and the New California Republic, Caesar's Legion, and the location of Hoover Dam. Also, despite its cancellation, the demo for the game was released to the public through a leak in 2007 and can still be downloaded to this day on No Mutants Allowed. I'll leave a wee link down in the description below. Following the closure of their PC game studios, Interplay pivoted towards consoles. Their final contribution to the Fallout series before selling the franchise was this noteworthy title launched for PlayStation 2 and Xbox. It marked a departure from previous themes and gameplay, embracing a character-focused action RPG approach. The storyline was relatively straightforward. Players take on the roles of initiates within the Brotherhood of Steel, battling against a mutant menace. The game speeds things up quite a bit and cranks up the cheese factor compared to its predecessors. It embraces a punk attitude, showcasing its coolness rather than striving for the nuanced storytelling of earlier titles. Although it's not considered canon and doesn't get a nod in any of the mainline titles, it still holds its own as an intriguing entity in the series. While it sticks with the special system, it swaps out skills for a perk-centric approach. Being an ARPG, it leans more heavily on player skill and gear rather than the traditional stats and levelling seen in CRPGs. There are some odd connections to the first game, like the appearance of the original Vault Dweller as an elderly character, but again, it's important to remember that this game isn't considered part of the official storyline, so any similarities shouldn't be taken too seriously. Sales-wise, the game didn't do too hot and didn't win over any fans, which only added to Interplay's troubles. This eventually led to them selling off the intellectual property to Bethesda later that same year. During the development of Fallout 3, Glutton Creeper Games scored a license from Interplay, even though Interplay no longer held the intellectual property rights. They were diving into creating a pen and paper Fallout game, and they were making good progress. They had 2 versions of rulebooks in the works when ZeniMax, Bethesda's parent company, stepped in with a legal warning for Glutton Creeper Games to halt their efforts. ZeniMax argued that Interplay didn't have the authority to license the property, and that releasing the pen and paper game alongside Fallout 3 could potentially tarnish the franchise's reputation. Glutton Creeper Games heeded the warning and removed all Fallout references from the project, eventually releasing it in 2007 under the title Exodus. What's puzzling is Bethesda's response, which seemed driven more by pettiness than practicality. Instead of threatening legal action, they could have struck a deal to acquire the project, oversee its development, and profit from its release. Opting for legal threats appears to have been a missed opportunity, driven perhaps by frustration that Interplay had greenlit the project. Introducing a tabletop experience could have actually bolstered the brand with little risk of further harm. Bethesda secured the rights to the series and launched their inaugural game to widespread acclaim. It was a much needed revival, and let's give credit where credit's due. They delivered. They retained the mature themes and dark humour of the earlier games, but it was evident to longtime fans that Bethesda was new to the series. The game kicks off with the player character's birth and follows their upbringing in Vault 101. When their father leaves the vault, the player is thrust into the wider world on a mission to find him. From there, it's a journey through a world in desperate need of help, while the player's father works tirelessly on a project aimed at restoring clean water to the wasteland using the Garden of Eden creation kit. After their father's passing, the player takes on the mantle of ensuring the project's success, contending with the Enclave and super mutants along the way. One major critique of the base game was its somewhat one-dimensional ending, which didn't sit well with players and was later addressed with downloadable content post-release. Gameplay took a different approach compared to its predecessors, emphasising an ARPG system while still building on the special and skill systems of earlier games, albeit without traits. The skill system felt a bit lacking, with an unusual setup for skill checks rather than fixed criteria. Even with a speech skill maxed out at 100, you could still fail a check, which seemed counterintuitive. Moreover, gunplay was notably subpar, given the studio's lack of experience with shooters. However, the dialogue system remained intact from previous titles, maintaining a closer connection to the spirit of Fallout 1 and 2 than Interplay's final game did. Bethesda undeniably propelled the game into the mainstream, making it highly accessible to newcomers. In fact, that's where my own journey with the series began. Yet, it's painful to acknowledge that in their quest to expand the series to a wider audience, they inadvertently alienated many long-time fans. While the game became more accessible, it lost some of the essence that endeared it to old-school fans. As a result, the community has been divided ever since. In 2007, Bethesda granted Interplay permission to craft a massively multiplayer online game set in the Fallout universe. Teaming up with Masthead Studios, they kicked off development in 2009. However, things took a legal turn later that year, when Bethesda sued Interplay for allegedly failing to meet their end of the deal, claiming insufficient funding and delayed development. Despite the legal wrangling, Interplay was allowed to continue working on the project. By the time the lawsuits concluded, Project V13 had fashioned a playable game world with over 2,500 pages of internal project files. Eventually, in 2012, an out-of-court settlement was reached, leading to the official cancellation of the game later that year. As someone who followed the game's development closely, and even signed up for the newsletter, witnessing its downfall was truly disheartening. It boasted some incredibly promising concepts, including the ambitious plan to span multiple states in the US. Given Interplay's rocky history, especially their struggles less than a decade prior, trust in their ability to deliver was understandably shaky. However, considering that development began just before Bethesda moved to revoke their license, it's hard to argue that it was a well-considered decision. Looking back at the history outlined here, it seems Bethesda lacked patience or faith in Interplay and treated them poorly as a result of that bias, which is regrettable. While the game has been stripped of all Fallout elements, it's still in development under Black Isle Studios. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any tangible update since 2012, leaving fans in limbo. Chris Avallone and Tim Cain, returning under their studio Obsidian, delivered another gem in the series they helped create, and it was a resounding success. Despite a short development time of just 18 months, Obsidian crafted a sprawling installment that truly returned the series to its roots. While technically a spin-off, it feels intimately connected to its predecessors, once again set in the Wild West, specifically Nevada. Drawing inspiration from the cancelled Van Buren project, the team resurrected old concepts and gave them new life, while introducing fresh ideas like the New Vegas Strip and the enigmatic Mr. House. They also brought back beloved factions, such as the weathered remnants of the Enclave and the enduring Cans Gang. As the player, you assume the role of a courier, tasked with delivering a platinum chip, only to find yourself on the receiving end of a bullet, courtesy of a gangster named Benny, after he snatches the valuable item from you. After being discovered and revived in Good Springs, a quaint town, you're thrust into a quest to track down Benny and unravel the mystery surrounding your attack. The game pays homage to Fallout 1 and 2, with the NCR making a comeback as a major faction and the Brotherhood of Steel taking a back seat due to an ongoing feud between the two groups. Retaining the ARPG gameplay introduced in Fallout 3, New Vegas refines the gunplay and places greater emphasis on role-playing over shooting. The characters are intricately crafted, each with their own depth and complexity, and Obsidian's trademark humour shines through brilliantly. The karma system also sees a revamp, with the reintroduction of reputation from Fallout 2. Now, karma is intertwined with the various factions, offering a more nuanced approach rather than a simplistic good versus evil dichotomy. New Vegas truly feels like the Fallout 3 experience we were all anticipating, and in many ways it is. The game has garnered immense love from fans, both old and new, which speaks volumes considering the backlash against the previous title. However, it wasn't without its flaws. The game was plagued with bugs, largely due to Obsidian's unfamiliarity with the engine and the limited time available for polishing. Despite these challenges, New Vegas emerged as a resounding success. As time goes on, the game's reputation continues to soar, with many considering it the pinnacle of the series. Following a noticeable absence, Fallout 4 was unveiled at E3 in 2015, slated for release later that year. As part of the marketing strategy and to tap into the burgeoning mobile gaming market, Bethesda also launched Fallout Shelter. In this game, players are tasked with managing and maintaining a vault and its residents. It involves a lot of base management, alongside activities like sending dwellers out to scavenge and explore, as well as defending the vault from raiders. Fallout Shelter's appeal lay in its simplicity and relatively fair game design compared to many other mobile games of its time. However, it still drew mixed reviews, primarily due to its somewhat shallow gameplay and the inclusion of microtransactions, even though they weren't as aggressively predatory as in some other titles. Bethesda made their second main series entry with Fallout 4, which received generally positive critical reviews upon release. The game kicks off with an intriguing premise. You begin as a pre-war character just as the bombs drop. Taking refuge in Vault 111, you're cryogenically frozen for 2 centuries. Upon awakening, you discover your child has been kidnapped and your spouse killed. With this emotional impetus, the game propels you into the post-apocalyptic world in search of your son. The parallels to Fallout 3 are unmistakable, especially in the opening sequences, and this similarity resonates throughout the game. After escaping the vault, you encounter the Minutemen, a reformed faction inspired by their predecessors. They point you towards Diamond City, where you're tasked with tracking down your child's kidnapper. Along the way, you're introduced to the Synths, often portrayed as adversaries. As your journey unfolds, the Brotherhood of Steel makes a grand entrance into the Commonwealth with the Pridewen, an imposing airship reminiscent of those in Fallout Tactics.
Interesting fact. The name Pridewen is actually Welsh and means handsome.
Wow, okay, I didn't actually know that. Additionally, the Railroad, a pro-synth faction, is locked in conflict with other hostile groups. The choice of which side to align with falls to you, and the game offers multiple endings, each more satisfying than those of Fallout 3, save for the Brotherhood ending, which closely mirrors its predecessor's conclusion. The game's primary drawback lies in its gameplay adjustments. While the gun mechanics are significantly improved, they come at the expense of role-playing elements. Though the special system remains, the intricate skill system has been replaced by a simplified list of perks, with traits once again omitted. It feels like Bethesda overlooked the lessons from New Vegas and further streamlined the game. Even the dialogue system, resembling Mass Effect more than traditional Fallout games, faced significant criticism. The death of role-playing opportunities is palpable and detracts from the overall experience. Despite its flaws, Fallout 4 still reflects a genuine passion in its development, evident in the attention to detail and the quality of its side quests. The crafting system in particular stands out as a valuable addition to the game. It's just unfortunate that these enhancements came at the expense of well-established systems that didn't necessarily need to be discarded. However, the game faced controversy regarding its modding community. The Creation Club, billed as DLC, stirred up frustration by charging players for mods created by the community. Many of these mods had superior free alternatives and were not included in the Season Pass as they arguably should have been. There was a lawsuit against Bethesda in 2022 about this very issue. Then, on December 5th of 2023, Bethesda introduced Creations, a replacement for the controversial Creation Club. Creations combined paid content with free mods, allowing modders to upload their creations free of charge. Additionally, modders can apply for the Bethesda Game Studios Verified Creator Program, enabling them to earn royalties for their paid mods. This marks a significant shift from Creation Club, where modders could only receive payment if hired and paid directly by Bethesda. Creations aims to make it easier for modders to monetize their work and receive compensation for their contributions. The fallout from Bethesda's attempt at a Fallout MMO has been nothing short of disastrous. Teased in 2018 and subsequently released, the game arrived in a woefully incomplete state, lacking polish and engaging quests.
And the fact that there were no characters, like, at all.
To compound matters, Bethesda swiftly opened the in-game shop, seemingly more focused on monetization than addressing fundamental issues. Despite eventually adding NPCs, the damage was done, and the game continued to suffer from controversy after controversy. Technical and design problems persisted well into its lifespan, hindering any hopes of redemption. The Fallout MMO's troubles only compounded with every attempted addition. Features that should have been basic patches were instead monetized, and even then, they often didn't work as promised. A storage box turned into a nightmare by permanently deleting items. Private servers lacked the privacy they claimed to offer, and players found themselves banned without proper justification. The disappointment extended beyond the digital realm. The special edition failed to deliver on its promises, substituting cheap duffel bags for the promised canvas ones. Adding insult to injury, refunds weren't issued until after the damage was already done, leaving customers feeling betrayed and underserved. Since the Fallout MMO debacle, Bethesda's track record with the series has been marred by continual backlash. Even products as seemingly innocuous as helmets had to be recalled due to high mold levels. With each release, the company seems to court more failure. The Fallout 76 may prove to be the final nail in the coffin for the series, unless Bethesda stages a remarkable comeback. In terms of gameplay, Fallout 76 borrows heavily from Fallout 4's combat and systems, with one notable addition: weapon degradation. Unfortunately, this feature felt more like a ploy to push microtransactions as weapons wore out far too quickly. The VATS system, meanwhile, was clumsily adopted to real-time play, resulting in a janky experience at best. Ultimately, the game felt lifeless and devoid of the passion that once characterised the series.
But, hang on. What about the way both Interplay and Bethesda tried to innovate with the series?
Well, Ruby, thanks for teeing up the next part. Interplay certainly wasn't afraid to experiment with the Fallout series, trying their hand at various RPG formats from CRPG to TRPG to ARPG. While these innovations had their successes, they ultimately struggled to resonate with fans who yearned for the nostalgic experience of the originals. It's likely that this disconnect played a significant role in Interplay's downfall. Similarly, Bethesda's journey with the series mirrors this pattern of innovation and subsequent disappointment. They succeeded in refining the ARPG experience and making RPG elements more accessible to a broader audience, but perhaps went too far in simplifying with Fallout 4. As a result, the series feels like a mere shadow of its former self. Without a change in approach, Bethesda may face a similar fate to Interplay unless they seek external expertise, possibly by collaborating with Obsidian once again. Bethesda's approach to marketing and consumerism has become a sore point for many fans of the series. The company seems eager to slap a Fallout logo on just about anything to turn a profit, which feels somewhat disingenuous given the satirical tone of the originals. It's as if Bethesda missed the mark on understanding the essence of the original games and instead focused solely on maximising revenue. This lack of understanding extends to their game design as well. Bethesda's entries into the Fallout series often feature a strange emphasis on patriotism and nationalism, themes that were never taken seriously in the first two games. In fact, nationalism was outright mocked in Fallout 2 with the Enclave faction. The originals used their interpretation of the future to delve into retro-futurism without overly glorifying or critiquing it. Bethesda's approach seems to miss the subtlety and nuance that made the originals so beloved. It's important to recognise that everyone's perspective on the direction of the Fallout series will vary, and ultimately whether you like the changes or not is entirely up to you. As for me, I want to reflect on the series and its impact on our hearts and minds. I've been a devoted fan of the series for a long time, but lately I found myself contemplating exploring other gaming realms. Titles like Obsidian's Outer Worlds, BioShock Infinite, and of course Bethesda's latest release, Starfield, have caught my attention. But that's a discussion for another time.
Can you imagine if you ran out to buy an Xbox purely to play Starfield?
That's enough, Ruby.
Your wife would murder you in your sleep.
It didn't happen.
Yes, it did.
Despite any reservations I may have about the current state of Fallout, I'm grateful that the original creators haven't stopped doing what they do best, and if Bethesda is wise, they'll consider bringing them back on board to help keep Fallout alive. Otherwise, I fear we may be witnessing the decline of an iconic franchise. So, that's it for this wee video. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my content. Until next time, I'm Bitmap Jack.
And I'm Ruby.
And we will catch you in the next one.